What's the best example of something someone went over your head on?
Puerto Rico.
Playing in Puerto Rico?
Yep. I thought it was important to play in Puerto Rico. I liked playing internationally. I liked playing and getting attention by playing the international games. And players do not like doing that. They want to get paid extra money to do it. They're inconvenienced to do it. And one year when Bonds was the coach, we had a Zika outbreak. I don't know if you guys remember that. It was something called Zika way before COVID. And it was this disease that if you were going to get pregnant or pregnant, then you had a potential problem. We had a team meeting, which I didn't want to have. We brought in doctors, which I didn't want to do. We had a doctor who the players knew. We had a doctor who we wanted. And we addressed the team and talked about the risks of going to Puerto Rico and how they were de minimis and we should go play. And Barry Bonds stood up and said, if I were you all, I wouldn't go to Puerto Rico unless they paid you more money. I kicked him out of the clubhouse. I screamed at him, and I went to talk to him. I said, you are not permitted to address the players ever. You are now management. You are not a player. You do not hold the sway that you think you hold. But guess what? Between him and Craig Breslow, the Yelly, who was on the team at the time, who explained to all of the players from the Dominican who were having sex with various people who could possibly get pregnant, saying, you're going to have a problem and it's going to cost you extra money if your kids are sick or your wife or your girlfriend, if anyone's sick. The players voted not to go to Puerto Rico. I had to call the commissioner's office and say, we're not going to Puerto Rico. And that's the truth of what happened, of why that trip was canceled.
I have other questions about times that you have felt most quickly. I don't know if you got
Dominicans were the only people having sex?
Listen, we can talk about the mechanics of a clubhouse anytime you want, and we could rank who has more sex, when, and how. I'm happy to do any of that if you think it's either good content or appropriate.
How would you know that?
When you're in a clubhouse for 18 years, you see.
Is there like
it
a daily thing where everyone comes in like, I had sex 4 times last night? You, everybody, put it on the board.
It's as close to that as I'd like to tell you, especially on the road.
Billy, you got us here. Any follow-ups?
Now, I kind of like Barry Bonds more now, honestly, after some of these stories.
He would not behave like management, but I don't mind someone who doesn't behave like management.
But when you're in management, you have to behave like someone in management. Otherwise, you shouldn't be in management.
Except
that's the role you play.
He was Barry Bonds, and he was in management, and he got a giant salary because they went over your head, and Loria wanted Barry Bonds, so then he was in management.
He was actually just empowered by that. The reason why I didn't have a lot of sway with Bonds is because he knew that all he had to do was call Jeffrey and he'd get whatever he wanted. He'd get his own suite on the road. He'd get his own transportation to and from hotels instead of being on the team bus. He'd be able to do anything he wanted. He'd get money paid under the table, which we lied to Major League Baseball and to the San Francisco Giants about when they asked. Larry Baer asked me straight up, the former president of the Giants, what are you paying Barry Bonds? And I lied and told him we were paying him like $350,000. And I'm sorry, Larry.
Why'd you lie to him?
Because under Perry Hill's contract, who was another one of Jeffrey's favorites, who got to do whatever he wanted, Perry Hill had to be the highest paid coach. That was the contract that Perry Hill signed with Jeffrey, not with me or Larry or Mike. Therefore, we couldn't violate that contract, so the coaching contract with Bonds had to be lower than the Perry Hill coaching contract, but Barry Bonds wouldn't come unless he were paid more than Perry Hill, so in order to pay him more than Perry Hill, we had to pay him from a different entity completely off the table.
Wait a minute. Perry Hill had the Nick Saban contract, which is crazy. 2, you violated that contract, so now you owe Perry Hill a ton of money.
Oh, bring it, Perry. I dare you. Bring it.
Why are you now threatening Perry Hill, who did nothing, and an honorable
Perry
man?
Hill did more to hurt the Marlins in his time there than just about anybody player or coach that we had.
What? Examples?
I mean, you may think because he has great PR, does it remind you of Jeter, someone who has great PR, but it's like the Wizard of Oz? Perry Hill has great PR as being the best infield coach of all time. Go ahead and ask players.
Luis Castillo gave him one of his gold gloves, I thought.
Because Luis Castillo was told that he can't sell the gold glove.
he was also too busy having sex.
And
As one of,
Dominican,
as
yeah,
one
he's
of those
Dominican,
Dominicans, he was too busy to concentrate on any of this stuff.
Don't make this about race.
What?
It's
I
not-
didn't
it's
make it
not.
about. I didn't know how many Mexicans, Dominicans, Colombians were having sex in your clubhouse. You brought it up. Nobody asked you that. You volunteered it. Moving on.